The acrid stench of ozone and scorched metal clawed at Captain Valerius's throat. His Voxcaster crackled with static, a constant reminder of the collapsing comnet, but it was the screams that truly punctuated the chaos. Not human screams, but the chittering, guttural cries of the Tyrannid horde, now just meters from their last defensive line. Plasma fire lanced across the darkened sky, briefly illuminating the grotesque, chitinous forms swarming the barricades. The Emperor's light felt impossibly distant here, on the shattered agri-world of Viridia Prime. "Hold the line, brothers," Valerius bellowed, his voice raw but unwavering. He fired a controlled burst from his bolt gun, tearing through the sinews of a charging termagant. Its twin, however, was already upon the trench, claws tearing into the flak armor of a guardsman. The man's shriek was cut short. The defense had been collapsing for hours. What began as a scouting force had rapidly escalated into a full-scale invasion. Hive Fleet Behemoth, or a splinter of it, had found them. Valerius knew there was no escaping this.
Only holding until the very last breath.
He glanced at Sergeant Kalen, whose face was grim, a streak of blood painting his cheek from a near miss. Kalen nodded, understanding the unspoken truth. This was their final stand, a shadow larger than anything Valerius had seen outside of a pict reel, lumbered over the ruined hab block behind the Tyrannid vanguard. A Carnifex. Its thrumming scythe limbs whirred with lethal intent, each strike capable of cleaving a rhino in half. Panic rippled through the guardsmen, but Valerius's training kicked in. "Focus fire on the beast!"
"Laser guns, bolt guns, anything that fires,"
he commanded, directing his own bolt gun's fury at its armored hide. The rounds sparked harmlessly against its carapace. Despair, cold and sharp, began to creep into his battle-hardened heart. Then, the world warped. It wasn't a psychic shriek, nor the flash of a teleportation strike. It was more akin to the air itself tearing like a fabric stretched too thin. A point of pure, searing white light ripped open directly above the Carnifex, an impossible void in the storm-racked sky. Valerius and every soldier still capable of lifting their head stared, momentarily forgetting the impending doom. From the swirling, chaotic aperture, a figure tumbled, not falling so much as spat out like a discarded toy. He was a young man, dressed in a bright orange and black outfit, with spiky blonde hair and an odd headband. He spun in the air, a blur of motion before landing with a crater-forming impact directly on the head of the Carnifex. The impact was utterly bizarre. The massive Tyrannid behemoth, which had shrugged off tank rounds, staggered. Its unholy shriek of rage turned into a guttural bellow of pain as its thick skull cracked. The strange figure, no bigger than a slight guardsman, bounced once, then pushed off the struggling creature's head. "Ow! Ow! Ow!"
"What the hell was that?"
The blonde-haired man yelled, his voice surprisingly loud amidst the din, completely devoid of the terror that clung to the air. He rubbed the back of his head, glaring at the giant bug-like monster now shaking its head in confusion and pain. Valerius could only stare, his mind struggling to process the scene. Who was this?
A Xeno of unknown origin? A lost psyker? A warp-spawned abomination?
Yet he moved with an almost comical grace, utterly out of place. The Carnifex, recovering from the initial shock, let out another enraged roar and charged the new arrival. The blonde man didn't flinch. He just planted his feet, brought his hands together in an unusual gesture, and a blue, swirling sphere of energy began to coalesce in his right palm. It hummed, a low, ominous sound that somehow cut through the battlefield noise. "All right, ugly."
"Let's see how you like this,"
he roared, then shoved the swirling orb forward. The The blue sphere struck the Carnifex directly in its chest, not with an explosion, but with a terrifying, grinding force. The creature's carapace, which had deflected Valerius's boltgun rounds, began to distort, to crumble inwards. A sickening, wet crunch echoed across the field as the force of the attack bored into the monster, tearing and dissolving its internal organs. The Carnifex spasmed violently, its multi-jointed legs flailing uselessly before collapsing into a twitching, smoking heap. Where the blue orb had struck, there was now a gaping, raw wound, a vortex of destroyed matter. Silence, brief and profound, fell over Valerius's trench. Even the Tyranids seemed to pause, their primal, insectoid minds perhaps registering the impossibility of what had just occurred. A single, small man with no visible weapon save for his bare hands had just obliterated a Carnifex. What in the Emperor's name? Kalen whispered, his voice laced with pure, unadulterated awe. Valerius, however, saw the bigger picture. The lull wouldn't last. The horde would adapt, overwhelm. But for a fleeting moment, a spark of hope, hot and fierce, ignited in his chest. Move!
Focus fire on the advancing bioforms,
Valerius commanded, shaking off his stupor. Keep an eye on the stranger. Do not engage unless provoked. The blonde man, oblivious to the command, was now scanning the battlefield with wide, incredulous eyes. He saw the endless tide of chitinous horrors, the desperate Imperial Guardsmen, the devastated landscape.
His mouth dropped open. Whoa,
What is all this?
are these Zetsu? No, they're way uglier.
And what's with the funny helmets? He pointed at a dead termagant. And these guys, are they on the attack? He seemed to finally register the immediate threat. His eyes narrowed, and a sudden primal anger flared in their depths. These things are attacking people.
Innocent people.
Without another word, the blonde man crouched. Valerius expected him to leap, to attack. Instead, he did something far stranger. He closed his eyes, and a wave of golden energy, almost imperceptible, rippled outwards from him. Then, with a series of distinct puffs, multiple identical copies of himself appeared around him.
Dozens of them.
They wore the same bright orange and black, had the same spiky blonde hair, and the same determined, almost reckless grins. "All right, listen up, clones," the original shouted, pointing dramatically at the advancing Tyranids.
These guys are big, ugly, and they're hurting people.
Let's show them what happens when they mess with Uzumaki Naruto. Yeah. The clones roared in unison, a chorus that was both utterly ridiculous and terrifyingly confident. They charged, not with the measured tactical approach of guardsmen, nor the brutal direct assault of Astartes. They charged with an almost joyful abandon, a hurricane of orange and black against the tide of black and grey chitin. Each clone, despite their seemingly fragile forms, moved with impossible speed, weaving through the lumbering Tyranids. A clone jumped onto the back of a warrior, twisting its head clean off with a sickening snap. Another slammed a blue swirling orb, another Rasengan into a Hormagaunt, utterly atomizing it. Others engaged in close-quarters combat, their fists and feet moving with blurring speed, shattering chitin, ripping apart sinew, deflecting claw strikes with impossible ease. Valerius watched, dumbfounded. This was not war as he knew it. This was an extermination, a whirlwind of impossible power unleashed upon an enemy that should have been unstoppable. The blonde man, this Uzumaki Naruto, was a force of nature. His clones were everywhere, disrupting the Tyranid advance, turning the tide of battle in mere seconds. He saw one clone grab a charging Hormagaunt by its scythe arm, spin it around, and use it as a living bludgeon to smash 3 other nearby Tyranids into pulp before flinging its broken body into a ravine. Another clone, cornered by a group of termagants, simply exploded into a cloud of smoke only to reappear behind them, kicking two into each other and slamming a Rasengan into the third. The guardsmen in the trench, initially paralyzed by shock, began to stir. They saw the impossible. They saw the Xenos which had been driving them to their death, faltering, confused. The Tyranid advance, which had been a relentless wave, was now a fractured, chaotic mess. He's doing it, Kalen stammered, his eyes wide. He's pushing them back. By the Emperor, Valerius breathed, a prayer escaping his lips unbidden. Focus fire, men.
Support the stranger. He is our salvation.
A renewed torrent of lasfire erupted from the trench, emboldened by the impossible spectacle before them. They no longer felt like sacrificial lambs, but part of a genuine counterattack. The Tyranids, caught between the Imperial guns and the whirlwind of Narutos, began to fall faster. The original Naruto, the main one, seemed to be coordinating them, even from a distance. He moved through the thickest parts of the fighting, a beacon of golden energy now subtly radiating from his form. A massive Genestealer lurked in the shadows, waiting for an opening, a blur of purple and black. Naruto, as if sensing it, suddenly pivoted, a Rasengan already forming. The Genestealer shrieked, launching itself forward with blinding speed, but Naruto was faster. He met the charging creature head-on, not with a dodge, but with a direct strike. The Rasengan plunged into the Genestealer's chest, and the creature simply ceased to exist. Its form dissolved into a spray of viscous fluid and shimmering particles, leaving only a crater in the ground. The golden energy around Naruto pulsed brighter. He stood amidst the carnage, chest heaving slightly, but otherwise unharmed. His clones continued their work, systematically eliminating the remaining Tyranids closest to the trench. The tide was turning, not slowly, but in a violent, impossible rush. Are they gone? A young guardsman asked, his voice trembling as he lowered his laser gun, looking at the rapidly dwindling numbers of the enemy. Not all of them, Valerius responded, his gaze scanning the horizon. The main swarm had indeed been broken, their vanguard annihilated, but stragglers, isolated bioforms, still roamed the devastated landscape. More importantly, the roar of the Hive ship still pulsed from orbit, a promise of endless horrors as the last few Tyranid stragglers were cut down, either by the bewildering force of the clones or the renewed barrage of Imperial fire. The clones began to vanish in puffs of smoke, one by one, until only the original Naruto remained. He stood there, alone amongst the piles of grotesque alien corpses, panting slightly. He turned, his bright blue eyes meeting Valerius's through the helmet visor. He flashed a wide, almost goofy grin, utterly out of place for the scene of apocalyptic devastation. "All right."
That takes care of that,
Naruto declared, wiping a smear of purple alien blood from his cheek.
Man, those guys were tough. Are there any more of them around?
Valerius stared, his mind reeling. This unknown, unbelievably powerful warrior had saved them. But who or what was he? And from where had he come? His arrival had been as sudden and inexplicable as the warp itself. He signaled for his men to maintain vigilance but hold their fire. This was no time for rash judgments. We are grateful for your intervention, stranger, Valerius managed, his voice still hoarse. But who are you?
And how did you come to be here?
Naruto cocked his head, a confused look replacing his grin.
Huh? Oh, me? I'm Uzumaki Naruto. And here? Where's here?
Last I checked, I was trying to stop a giant evil plant monster from eating the world. And then poof, everything went bright. And now I'm here with you guys and these ugly bugs. You wouldn't happen to know where the Leap Village is, would you? Valerius exchanged a look with Kalen, his expression masked by his helmet, but his surprise evident in his posture.
Leaf Village?
Evil plant monster? This man spoke in riddles, yet wielded power that defied all Imperial understanding. He was either a madman, a Xeno, or something far more dangerous, and utterly unprecedented. This is Viridia Prime, part of the Imperium of Man, Valerius explained slowly, choosing his words carefully. There is no leaf village known to us. As for the evil plant monster, we face a Xenos infestation known as the Tyrannid Hive Fleet. They consume worlds whole. Naruto's eyes widened.
Consume worlds? Seriously?
That sounds way worse than the Ten Tails. So you guys are fighting them? Alone? He looked around at the battered guardsmen, the devastated trenches, the overwhelming evidence of a losing battle. Man, that sucks. You guys look totally beat up. We were on the verge of being overrun, Kalen interjected, unable to hold back. You saved us, stranger, Naruto grinned again, a flash of genuine warmth in his eyes.
Oh, well, that's what I do. I help people.
Especially when they're getting stomped by bad guys. So, what's the plan now?
Are there more of these Tyrannids coming?
Valerius grimaced. Yes, many more. That was only a vanguard. The main host, and likely the hive ship, are still in orbit. Our orbital defenses are gone. Our comms are sporadic. We are awaiting an evacuation that may never come. Naruto's grin faded, replaced by a thoughtful frown. He looked up at the star-filled sky, where faint, dark shadows of immense ships could be glimpsed. So, like, a really big ship filled with these bugs is up there and it's going to drop more of them? That is the grim truth of it, Valerius confirmed, a weary sigh escaping him. Naruto placed a hand on his chin, rubbing it thoughtfully. A big ship full of bad guys that reminds me of that time with the Cloud Village and the Golden and Silver Brothers, only way bigger scale. He looked back at Valerius, his eyes alight with a familiar, dangerous glint.
Hey, you guys got any way to get up to that big ship?
Or like, point me in the right direction. Valerius's internal alarm bells went off. This man, this Uzumaki Naruto, was suggesting a direct assault on a hive ship. It was madness, suicide. Yet, the power he had just displayed. Ascending to a hive ship is impossible, Valerius stated, trying to maintain his composure. Our shuttles are destroyed, our atmospheric fighters gone. Even if we had one, a single man could not breach its defenses, let alone survive within its bioform. Nah, I bet I could, Naruto said confidently, his chest puffing out slightly.
I've faced worse.
Believe it. Just need a way to get there. Or maybe I can make my own way. He looked at his hands, then back at the sky. A strange, calculating expression settled on his face, a stark contrast to his earlier joviality. Kalen stepped forward, a mixture of hope and fear in his eyes. Are you suggesting you would confront the hive ship alone? Naruto looked at him, then at Valerius, and finally at the weary, frightened faces of the remaining guardsmen. Look, you guys are fighting really hard, but you're getting overwhelmed. If there's a giant bug nest up there and that's where all these ugly guys are coming from, then someone needs to go up there and kick it where it hurts, right? He paused, then his eyes hardened. I don't know where I am, and I don't know how I got here, but I'm not going to just stand by and watch people get eaten by these things. Not while I can still fight. Valerius felt a chill, not of fear, but of profound, unsettling realization. This man, this impossible stranger, was serious. He truly intended to take the fight to the heart of the enemy. It was lunacy, but a lunacy born of a power Valerius had never witnessed. The orbital cannon on Sector Delta could potentially provide a launch platform for a single-man ascent. If it were operational, Valerius heard himself say, almost against his will. It's a relic, long offline, but its energy conduits are immense. If it could be recharged, if it could be aimed, Naruto's eyes lit up.
A cannon?
Like a really big slingshot.
Perfect. Where is it? Can you guys get it working?
And how far is it? Valerius hesitated, weighing the sheer impossibility against the desperate hope. Sending this man, this anomaly, into the heart of the hive fleet was insane. Yet staying here meant certain death for all of them. This was a Hail Mary pass of galactic proportions. It is a day's march from here through contested territory, Valerius explained. and reactivating it would require an engineering miracle and a direct link to the sector's main power grid, which is likely compromised or destroyed. Naruto didn't seem deterred.
A day's march? No problem.
And power grid?
What's that, like an electrical outlet? I can probably charge it up. I've got plenty of chakra.
He thumped his chest.
Come on, tell me where it is. Let's go.
Valerius looked at the remaining guardsmen. Their faces, once etched with despair, now held a flicker of something new. Belief. They had seen the impossible. They had witnessed their savior. And now he was offering them a chance, however slim, to strike back. "Sergeant Kalen, rally the able-bodied," Valerius commanded, his voice firm, decisive. "We move out at first light. Our objective, Sector Delta. Our mission, reactivate the orbital cannon." He turned back to Naruto, his expression grim. "Understand this, Uzumaki Naruto. If this plan fails, we will all die. But if it succeeds, you will face an enemy beyond your wildest nightmares."
Are you truly prepared for that?
Naruto's blue eyes gleamed with an unshakable resolve. He just grinned, a confident, utterly fearless grin that, in this grim, dying world, felt like a defiant roar against the darkness. "Bring it on," he declared. "I'm Uzumaki Naruto, future Hokage,
And I'm not going to back down from anything. Believe it."
The words hung in the air, a stark, almost absurd declaration against the backdrop of a dying world, yet they carried a weight, a promise that resonated in the hearts of the desperate guardsmen. Valerius knew with a certainty that chilled and thrilled him that their fate, and perhaps the fate of Viridia Prime, now rested on the shoulders of this strange, impossibly powerful boy. The true battle, it seemed, was only just beginning. The journey to Sector Delta was a brutal testament to the Tyranid's destructive efficiency. What had once been a sprawling agri-industrial complex was now a skeletal landscape of ruptured pipelines, collapsed hab blocks, and fields of mutated, decaying flora. Every shadow seemed to harbor a chittering horror, every crater a potential ambush. Captain Valerius's ragged company, numbering barely 100 able-bodied men, moved like ghosts through the wreckage, their faces grim, their boots crunching on bone and shattered ceramite. Naruto, however, found himself walking with a strange blend of awe and indignation. He'd never seen anything like it. Not even during the Fourth Great Ninja War, when the world had been on the brink of collapse, had he witnessed such widespread, indiscriminate destruction. He saw a broken doll clutched in the skeletal hand of a child, half buried in rubble. He saw the remains of a family huddled together, blasted apart by some alien weapon.
A raw, simmering anger began to build within him. This is just awful," he muttered, his usual boisterousness muted by the grim reality.
"These things, they just destroy everything, don't they?" "They consume," Valerius corrected, his voice flat. He walked beside Naruto, his bolter held ready, his eyes constantly scanning. "Every organic trace, every drop of biomass. They leave nothing but sterile rock in their wake."
"It is their nature. Their nature sucks,"
Naruto retorted, clenching his fists.
"My nature is to protect people."
"And these guys are definitely doing the opposite." He squinted at a distant movement. "Hold on, I see something." Before Valerius could react, Naruto vanished in a blur of orange. A moment later, a series of sickening snaps and wet thuds echoed from a collapsed manufactorum ahead. When Naruto reappeared beside them, he was wiping his hands on his trousers, a familiar, determined glint in his eyes. "Just a few more of those bugs trying to sneak up on us," he explained. "Don't worry, they won't be bothering anyone anymore. Man, they really like hiding in the dark, don't they?" Kalen, who had flinched at the speed of Naruto's movement, merely nodded, still processing the impossible ease with which the stranger dispatched threats that would have required a full squad's effort. Trust was slowly, irrevocably growing among the guardsmen. Naruto wasn't just a force of nature, he was their force of nature. As the day wore on, Naruto continued to be their silent, impossibly effective guardian. He'd range ahead, using his uncanny senses, what he called sage mode, to detect Tyranid patrols long before they could ambush the weary guardsmen. He'd either dispatch them swiftly and silently, a blur of orange and blue chakra, or direct Valerius to a safer path. Their progress, which should have been agonizingly slow and costly, became almost routine. The fear of being constantly hunted began to recede, replaced by a cautious optimism. By the time the twin moons of Viridia Prime began their ascent, casting long, distorted shadows across the ravaged land, they finally saw it, Sector Delta. It was a gargantuan structure, even in its state of disrepair. A colossal skeletal arm, thick as a starship's keel, reached into the heavens, culminating in a barrel wider than any tank.
Rust and neglect had painted it a sickly orange, and parts of its control tower had simply crumbled, leaving gaping holes. "There it is," Valerius said, his voice laced with a mixture of awe and despair.
The orbital defense cannon, the Emperor's Gaze, hasn't fired in centuries. The local PDF maintained it as a ceremonial piece, never truly believing it would be needed. Naruto's eyes widened.
"Whoa, that thing is huge. And you want me to get launched from that?"
He grinned. "All right, cool. Looks like a challenge." They approached cautiously. The sector was eerily quiet, save for the wind whistling through the ruined complex. It was a silence that Valerius mistrusted, a predator's lull. "Spread out, secure the perimeter," Valerius commanded, his men fanning out, laser-guns raised.
"Kalen with me."
"We need to assess the control room."
"Naruto, can you?" "On it."
Naruto replied, already forming hand signs.
"Shadow clone jutsu."
A dozen Narutos popped into existence, then split off into groups, fanning out even wider than the guardsmen. They moved like ninjas, silently investigating the perimeter, checking collapsed structures, their bright orange forms surprisingly adept at blending into the shadows when they needed to. Within minutes, the original Naruto returned. "All clear, Captain," he reported, giving a thumbs up. "Just a few hungry critters in the lower levels, but my clones took care of them. The main entrance is blocked, though. Looks like a big rock slide. Damn it," Valerius muttered. "The primary access is likely through there. The secondary maintenance hatches are probably rusted shut. No problem," Naruto declared, already moving towards the main entrance.
"I'll just blast it open."
"Stand back, guys." Before Valerius could protest, Naruto channeled a massive amount of chakra. A blue, swirling orb, far larger and more volatile than the ones he'd used before, coalesced in his hands. He slammed it into the mountain of rubble blocking the entrance. The sound was deafening, a grinding roar that tore through the air. Rock, twisted metal, and ancient dust exploded outwards, clearing a path wide enough for a Lehman Russ battle tank. The guardsmen stared, their jaws agape. This was beyond anything they could comprehend. "Right then," Valerius said, recovering first.
"Inside, everyone. Establish defensive positions. Kalen with me to the control room."
The interior of the orbital cannon complex was a cathedral of decaying technology. Massive, corroded conduits snaked through the walls, generators lay dormant, encrusted with centuries of dust. The air was thick with the smell of ozone, rust, and the faint, unsettling scent of something ancient and forgotten. They finally reached the control room, a circular chamber dominating the peak of the tower. It was surprisingly intact, but the main console glowed with only a few flickering, dying lights. Most of its screens were black, cracked, or simply inert. "Status report, Kalen," Valerius ordered, shining his tactical light over the main console. Kalen, a skilled tech adept in his own right despite being a guardsman, began to rapidly assess the console. His fingers flew across rusted keypads, his eyes scanning archaic readouts. "Offline, Captain, completely. Power conduits severed at multiple points. The primary core is dormant. Secondary systems are defunct. It would take a full Tech Priest Mechanicus retinue, months, perhaps years, to bring this back online. He kicked a sparking cable in frustration. And even then, the targeting matrix for atmospheric launch is, well, it's designed for ammunition, not a human. Despair, cold and familiar, began to creep back into Valerius's heart. He had allowed himself to hope, however briefly, but this was the Imperium. Miracles rarely happened, and when they did, they were often grim and bloody. Is there any way to bypass the internal power systems? Naruto asked, his head tilted. He was looking at the conduits, the dormant generators, with a curious intensity. Like, if I could just pump a lot of energy into it, would that help? Valerius looked at Kalen, who shrugged helplessly. Theoretically, a direct, unfiltered power surge into the main conduits might bypass some of the dead relays and secondary regulators, but it would be incredibly dangerous. The system isn't designed for that kind of input. It could overload, explode, fuse the entire complex. Naruto grinned.
Explosions, danger?
Sounds like my kind of party. Just tell me where to put my hands. Valerius hesitated. It was an insane proposition. Yet, what other choice did they have? Death by tyrannid or a slim, impossible chance? Kalen, identify the primary power conduits leading to the main cannon array, Valerius ordered. Naruto, are you certain you can do this? Believe it, Naruto said, his eyes burning with resolve.
I've got more than enough power to light up a whole city if I wanted to. Just point me to the biggest wires.
Under Kalen's nervous direction, Naruto found the main conduit, a massive cable thick as a man's torso, running from the control room down into the heart of the ancient machinery. He placed his hands on it, closing his eyes. A soft, golden glow began to emanate from him, pulsating with immense energy. The air in the room crackled, and the few remaining lights on the console flickered violently. He's doing it! Kalen gasped, staring at the power meters that were, impossibly, beginning to stir. The golden glow around Naruto intensified. He gritted his teeth, sweat beading on his brow.
This thing is really hungry. It's like trying to fill up a bottomless ramen bowl.
Down in the bowels of the complex, the dormant generators began to hum, a low, groaning sound that quickly rose in pitch. Lights, dead for centuries, flickered back to life, bathing the vast, cavernous spaces in an eerie green glow. The entire structure vibrated, shaking off layers of dust and rust. Back in the control room, Valerius watched the main console come alive. Screens flared to life, data streaming across them, centuries of dormancy finally broken. He could hear the metallic groans of the immense cannon array as it began to stir, hydraulic pumps hissing to life. He's overloading the capacitors, Kalen yelled, pointing at a rapidly rising gauge. The power output is off the charts.
It's going critical.
Just a little more. Naruto strained, his body now radiating a blinding golden aura, his feet digging furrows into the metal floor.
Almost got it.
With a final gargantuan surge, Naruto pulled his hands away from the conduit. The golden aura around him receded, leaving him panting, but with a triumphant grin.
Ooh, that was tough,
he exclaimed. Did it work? Kalen, eyes wide with disbelief, stared at the console.
It's online.
All systems nominal. Power levels stable, incredibly.
It shouldn't be possible.
The Emperor works in mysterious ways, Valerius murmured, but his gaze was fixed on Naruto, a new, profound respect in his eyes. He turned to the main console, his fingers flying across the newly responsive controls. Can we target a specific point in orbit, Kalen? Can we adjust for a single-person payload? Kalen was already working, his face a mask of intense concentration. The targeting matrix for an individual projectile is crude, Captain, designed for kinetic impact, not precision delivery. But with the power reserves at maximum, yes, we can aim for the center of the largest biomass signature in orbit. It will be imprecise, but the sheer velocity will propel him through any immediate void spores. He paused. Are you sure, Captain? There's no turning back. Valerius looked at Naruto, who was bouncing on the balls of his feet, eager anticipation in his eyes. Uzumaki Naruto, you are truly prepared for what awaits you up there? Naruto's grin widened. You bet.
Let's go kick some alien butt.
And let it be so, Valerius declared, his voice firm. Sergeant Kalen, prepare the launch tube.
Give him all the power you can spare.
We give him the best chance we can. As Kalen began the complex launch sequence, directing the immense cannon's arm to pivot towards the dark mass of the hive ship in orbit, Valerius turned to Naruto. The hive ship is a living entity, he explained, his voice grim. It will be filled with the most grotesque horrors you can imagine. Its interior will be a labyrinth of organic tissue, digestive sacs, and spawning pools. Its very atmosphere will be poisonous. You will be alone, Naruto nodded, his expression serious now.
I get it.
Super dangerous, super gross. But that's where the leader of these things is, right? If I take out the big boss, the rest of them will get confused and stop, won't they? That's usually how it works. Valerius hesitated, then decided against explaining the intricacies of the tyrannid hive mind. Naruto's simple, direct approach might be their only hope. We don't know for certain if there is a leader in the way you understand it, but disrupting the central processing nexus, the hive mind's command node, would certainly cripple this splinter fleet.
It is your best chance to save Viridia Prime. Then that's what I'll do,
Naruto declared, his eyes burning with renewed resolve.
I'll find it and hit it with my biggest Rasengan.
The launch chamber was a vast, cylindrical space that hummed with immense energy. The air shimmered, and the floor vibrated with the increasing power surging through the cannon. Naruto stood in the center of a circular platform, looking up at the impossibly long, dark barrel. Valerius clasped Naruto's shoulder. For Viridia Prime, for the Imperium. Go with the Emperor's light, stranger, Naruto grinned, a genuine, unburdened smile.
You got it, Captain.
Wish me luck. Then, the platform lowered him into the launch tube. The hatch sealed with a pneumatic hiss, plunging him into darkness, initiating launch sequence. Kalen's voice crackled over the internal comms. Stabilizers online. Power conduits charging. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 launch. With a roar that shook the very foundations of the continent, the orbital cannon fired. A blinding flash of pure energy erupted from the muzzle, tearing through the atmosphere. Naruto felt an unimaginable force press against him, a crushing acceleration that would have pulverized any ordinary human. But he braced himself, channeling chakra, his body glowing with a protective aura. The world outside became a blur of blue and black, then a sudden, dizzying expanse of stars. He was in space. The view was breathtaking and terrifying. Viridia Prime, a mottled blue and green marble, receded rapidly beneath him. Ahead, looming like a mountain of nightmares, was the Tyrannid Hive ship. It wasn't metal and rivets. It was a colossal, organic horror, a living continent of chitin, sinew, and writhing tentacles. Smaller bioships, like parasitic insects, clung to its surface. Spore clouds drifted around it, thick and virulent. As he closed the distance, the sheer scale of the ship became apparent. It was easily hundreds of kilometers long, a pulsating, breathing leviathan. He felt a psychic pressure, a cold, alien intelligence pressing in on him. The hive mind. It was aware of his approach. The impact was less a crash and more a breach. He slammed into the hive ship's carapace with the force of a meteor, his chakra-enhanced body ripping through layers of armored chitin and pulpy flesh. He didn't explode or disintegrate. He simply penetrated. He tumbled through dark, fleshy tunnels, the air thick with the stench of ammonia and something sickeningly sweet. Bioluminescent growths pulsed on the walls, illuminating a landscape of grotesque organs, pulsating veins, and gnashing orifices. The ship was alive and he was inside it. He landed in a vast chamber, slipping on a viscous yellow fluid. All around him, smaller tyrannid bioforms, gaunts and warriors, had been caught in the wake of his impact. They lay mangled and twitching, but more were already scuttling towards him from the darkness. "All right, ugly," Naruto roared, shaking off the impact.
"Let's see what you got inside."
He activated Sage Mode, his eyes turning yellow, a fiery orange pigment forming around them. He could feel the pulse of the hive ship, the cold, alien intelligence all around him. He could sense the overwhelming number of bioforms, but also a central core, a massive pulsating node deep within the ship, radiating a cold, dark energy. That had to be it. He formed a half-dozen shadow clones, and together they plunged into the organic labyrinth. The fighting was incessant. Every tunnel, every chamber teemed with tyrannids. Warriors, genestealers, raveners, even hulking broodlords rose to meet him. But Naruto, fueled by his anger at the destruction he'd witnessed, was unstoppable. His clones acted as decoys, as distractions, and as powerful combatants in their own right. They ripped through chitinous hides, shattered bone, and blasted through walls of living tissue with Rasengan. Naruto himself, the original, moved with unparalleled speed, dodging swipes and bites, his fists and feet landing with bone-shattering force. He would often leap onto a warrior's back, use it as a springboard to launch himself higher, then slam a Rasengan down into a thick cluster of termagants below. The interior of the hive ship seemed to writhe in response to his assault. Tunnels would constrict, trying to crush him. Digestive enzymes would spray from vents, attempting to dissolve him. Psychic shrieks would hammer at his mind, trying to break his will. But Naruto, accustomed to resisting genjutsu and the malicious intent of ancient chakra beasts, pushed through it all. He was too determined, too driven by his promise to the guardsmen. He found vast, cavernous spaces that pulsed with dim, organic light. Spawning pools filled with embryonic tyrannids burbled nauseatingly. He didn't hesitate. A massive Rasengan, a potent ball of destructive chakra, would tear through the entire chamber, boiling the pools, collapsing the walls, and destroying hundreds of gestating horrors. "Take that, you creepy egg sacks!" he yelled, his voice echoing in the fleshy chambers. The further he went, the stronger the presence of the hive mind became, a singular, focused malice. He was closing in. He could feel it, a giant psychic heartbeat in the darkness. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of relentless combat, he burst into a truly colossal chamber. It dwarfed anything he had seen so far.
At its center, suspended by thick, pulsating tendrils, was a grotesque, brain-like mass.
It was immense, easily as large as a small city block, its surface covered in countless synaptic receptors, nerve clusters, and glowing, intelligent eyes that now all focused on him. This was the hive mind's central processing nexus, the consciousness of the entire fleet, and it was defended. Scores of Tyrannid Prime forms, monstrous versions of the regular warriors, flanked by lictors, carnifexes, and even a hulking swarm lord emerged from the shadows. Their psychic connection to the central brain was palpable, their forms moving with a singular, terrible purpose. This was the core defense. "So you're the big boss, huh?" Naruto muttered, a wide, challenging grin spreading across his face. He felt the immense power of the hive mind pressing down on him, trying to crush his spirit, to overwhelm him with visions of utter despair and futility. But Naruto had stared down Kaguya, faced beings of unimaginable cosmic power. He simply hardened his resolve. "All right, everyone," he yelled, forming another dozens of shadow clones, each one glowing with sage chakra. "Let's show these guys what a real team can do." The clones roared in unison, then launched themselves at the endless tide of guardians. The battle was epic, a whirlwind of orange and black against purple and chitin. Rasengan bloomed like deadly flowers, ripping through the most armored bioforms. Clones used their taijutsu, shattering limbs, tearing through sinews, their agility baffling the monstrous aliens. Naruto himself focused on the Swarm Lord, a four-armed monster that moved with terrifying speed and intelligence, its bone swords capable of slicing through adamantium. He dodged its lightning-fast strikes, the air whistling where its blades passed.
Naruto met its charge with a kick that sent the creature skidding back, its hardened carapace groaning under the impact. "You're fast, but not fast enough."
Naruto taunted, then slammed a Rasengan into its chest, boring a gaping wound into its armored form. The Swarm Lord shrieked, a sound that vibrated through the organic chamber, and retaliated with a furious flurry of attacks. Meanwhile, the clones were taking heavy losses, exploding into puffs of smoke as they were overwhelmed. But not before taking down dozens of the defenders. Naruto knew he couldn't fight all of them forever. He needed to strike at the heart. He saw an opening, a momentary distraction created by a clone's sacrifice. With a burst of speed, he soared over the Swarm Lord, directly towards the pulsating, brain-like core. The hive mind lashed out with psychic force, a direct assault on his mind, overwhelming him with a vision of his friends, his village, consumed by the Tyranids. He stumbled, gasping, but remembered his promise. He remembered the shattered doll, the grim faces of the guardsmen. "No way!" he roared, pushing through the psychic assault.
"I won't let you hurt anyone else!"
He began to gather chakra, an immense amount, far more than any Rasengan he had ever created. Golden energy swirled around him, compressing, intensifying. It wasn't blue this time. It was a pure dazzling gold. A miniature sun formed in his hands, humming with destructive power. "This is for Viridia Prime."
"For the Imperium! For everyone you've hurt!"
he yelled, his voice cracking with exertion and fury.
"Planetary Rasengan!"
He slammed the massive golden orb into the central brain of the hive mind. The impact was beyond cataclysmic. There was no explosion, no flash of light. Instead, the golden orb began to dissolve the very fabric of the brain. It didn't tear. It simply ceased to exist, replaced by a vortex of raw, unmaking energy. The immense synaptic mass began to writhe, to shriek, but it was a silent scream that tore through Naruto's very soul. He felt the hive mind's dying agony, its alien consciousness unraveling, dissipating into nothingness. The entire hive ship shuddered violently. The bioluminescent lights flickered and died. The ground beneath him buckled. The remaining Tyranid defenders, mid-attack, suddenly froze. Their eyes glazed over, their movements becoming erratic, then simply stopping. The Swarm Lord, half destroyed, collapsed into a twitching heap. They were cut off. The hive mind was gone. Naruto stood amidst the dying ship, chest heaving, utterly spent. The chamber around him was collapsing, organic matter tearing, fluids gushing. He had to get out. He tried to activate Sage Mode again, but he was too depleted. He had poured almost everything into that last attack. He had one desperate option left. Shadow Clone Jutsu, he gasped, forcing out a single clone, barely formed. "Get me out." The clone, its energy equally diminished, grabbed him, and together they sprinted, weaving through the collapsing tunnels, narrowly avoiding being crushed by falling biomass. He could feel the hive ship dying around him, its structure failing, its immense mass beginning to break apart. They found a breach, a weakened section of the hull near the point of impact. With a final desperate burst of chakra, the clone punched through the dying chitin, creating an opening. They tumbled out into the cold vacuum of space, just as the hive ship began its final catastrophic demise. From orbit, Captain Valerius and his remaining guardsmen watched in stunned silence as the immense Tyranid hive ship, which had dominated the sky for days, began to rupture. First, glowing cracks appeared across its vast surface, then segments of its chitinous hull began to peel away, revealing the pulsing, dying organs within. Finally, with a silent, agonizing groan that was felt more than heard, the entire monstrosity detonated in a spectacular, beautiful supernova of biological matter, tearing itself apart under the strain of its own ruined systems. A cheer,
Ragged and hoarse, erupted from the guardsmen.
They had seen the impossible. They had survived. But Valerius's gaze was fixed on the debris field. One small golden speck of light, barely visible against the vastness of space, was rapidly falling towards the atmosphere. "He's coming back," Valerius whispered, a tremor in his voice. "The Emperor's light guide him." Naruto's descent was a fiery plummet. Without the controlled re-entry systems of a shuttle, he was little more than a meteor. His chakra, depleted as it was, formed a bare shield around him, protecting him from the intense heat of atmospheric friction. He gritted his teeth, holding on, praying he wouldn't just burn up. He closed his eyes, thinking of Ramen, of the Leaf Village, of everyone he had promised to protect. He slammed into the ground miles from Sector Delta, creating a massive crater, but alive. He lay there, dazed, coughing up dust, his entire body screaming in protest, but a wide, relieved grin spread across his face. "Held it!" he rasped, giving a weak thumbs up to the empty sky. Valerius and Kalen, having rallied a few of their remaining transports, found him a few hours later. He was lying in the center of a scorched crater, covered in dust, his orange and black outfit torn and singed, but otherwise miraculously intact. "Uzumaki Naruto," Valerius said, kneeling beside him, his helmet now off, revealing a tired, deeply relieved face.
You actually did it.
"You saved us. You saved Viridia Prime." Naruto pushed himself up, wincing.
Hey, told you I would.
"Took out the big boss, just like I promised." He looked up at the clearing sky, now free of the ominous presence.
"So when do I get some ramen around here? I'm starving."
The guardsmen around them, their faces streaked with soot and tears, chuckled. It was a sound they hadn't made in days, a sound of genuine relief and gratitude. "We have no ramen, stranger," Valerius said, a rare, genuine smile gracing his lips. "But we have emergency rations and the eternal gratitude of the Imperium." "You are a hero, Naruto."
"A legend," Naruto grinned, then looked around at the devastated landscape, the weary but alive guardsmen. "Now you guys are the heroes too."
"You fought really hard."
"I just helped a little." He paused, a thoughtful look on his face.
"So about getting back to my world, any ideas?" Valerius shook his head. "We have no knowledge of such technologies, Naruto. Your arrival was a mystery, and your departure may be as well." Naruto frowned, a hint of his old frustration.
"Man, that sucks. So I'm stuck here? How am I supposed to become Hokage if I'm stuck in space?"
Just then, the sky above them began to shimmer. Not with the tearing, violent rupture of Naruto's arrival, but with a gentle, swirling vortex of pure light, reminiscent of the portal that had brought him here. It pulsed, drawing him in. Naruto's eyes widened. "Whoa, is that?" Valerius looked up, a sense of foreboding filling him. "What in the Emperor's name?"
"It's like it heard me,"
Naruto exclaimed, pushing himself to his feet.
"It's my ride home. I gotta go."
He turned to Valerius, a sudden seriousness in his eyes. "Captain Valerius, you guys, you're good people. Keep fighting these bugs, okay?"
"Don't give up, and take care of Viridia Prime."
Valerius, still reeling from the sudden reappearance of the portal, could only nod, a lump in his throat. Naruto looked at Kalen, then at the assembled guardsmen, and gave them a final beaming thumbs up. "And remember, never go back on your word."
"That's my ninja way."
With that he turned, and with a final chakra-fueled leap, he launched himself towards the swirling vortex of light. He vanished into it, leaving behind only the fading afterglow and the silence of a world reborn. Valerius stared at the spot where Naruto had disappeared, then up at the now truly clear sky. The hive ship was gone. The planet was safe. They had survived. But at what cost? And what was this impossible being? A miracle? A demon? A manifestation of the Emperor's will? He didn't know. He only knew that for a brief, glorious time, the darkness of the 41st millennium had been pierced by a defiant orange light. "Captain," Kalen said, his voice reverent, "what do we tell the Inquisitors?" Valerius looked at his men, their faces tired but triumphant, a new kind of hope in their eyes. He looked at the vast, empty crater where Naruto had landed, then at the distant ruins of the orbital cannon. "We tell them," Valerius said, his voice firm and clear, "that the Emperor sent a champion, a warrior unlike any other,
and that Viridia Prime stands." The sun began to rise on Viridia Prime, painting the shattered landscape in hues of gold and amber.
The war was far from over. Recovery would be slow, painful, and grim. But for the first time in a very long time, the guardsmen of Viridia Prime looked at the dawn, not with dread, but with a flicker of hope. A hope born of impossible courage, boundless determination, and the memory of a loud, brash, spiky-haired boy who, against all odds, had saved them all.